Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a managing partner, a legal ops manager, or an IT leader, you are probably under constant pressure to innovate. We all hear it all the time. But today, we're diving into a core thesis that actually might surprise you a bit. Fixing your matter intake is, in most cases, the smartest, absolutely most impactful operational upgrade your law firm can make. We're going to explore exactly why the very beginning of a matter dictates literally everything that follows, and how to finally get that starting line right.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the legal AI misconception, walk through the manual relay race, look at the downstream domino effect, talk about redesigning the starting line, and wrap up with orchestration with Omnisenti. Let's just jump right in.
Section 1. The legal AI misconception.
Okay, we really need to address the elephant in the room when it comes to how law firms usually think about adopting new tech, especially AI. When most firms brainstorm their first big AI win, they instantly gravitate toward what we call the flashy first step. You know, tools that draft contracts, summarize huge documents. Those highly visible, almost sci-fi AI features. But here is the reality of the situation. Applying flashy AI to a disorganized, messy workflow is basically like dropping a sports car engine into a completely broken chassis. The smart first step is actually matter intake, routing, and workflow. It's the truly strategic move because intake fundamentally shapes the quality of the data for every single thing that happens next.
Moving on to Section 2, the manual relay race.
Let's step away from the theory for a second and look at a reality I'm sure we're all familiar with. Imagine a fictional mid-sized firm, let's call them Ashford Vale Lawyers. A new matter arrives. Say it's for a key client, Harborfront Property Group, and they need a lease review. It comes in via a partner's email or maybe a quick phone call note or referral. Now, on the surface, this intake looks incredibly simple, right? It's just a request. But operationally, the second that email hits the inbox, it instantly triggers this massive chain of hidden, manual friction across the entire firm.
Let's actually trace what this manual relay race looks like on the ground. First, the email request arrives, and immediately the batons start dropping. We get duplicate data entry, so an assistant or an associate has to manually retype the client and matter details into the practice management system. Then comes the manual attachment check. Someone literally has to scour the email chain just to make sure all the right lease documents are actually attached. And finally, routing uncertainty. Someone has to figure out who actually has the capacity to take on this review. Information is captured inconsistently, details get re-entered, and time is just bleeding out of the firm before the legal work is even started.
Which brings us to Section 3, the downstream domino effect.
What's really fascinating about this, and I think absolutely crucial to understand, is that we need to completely shift the blame away from your team. The fault is not with careless or incompetent staff. It's an inefficient chain reaction. Because of that manual relay race, missing information causes early delays, matter setup dramatically slows down, and worse, the wrong people get interrupted. You've got partners fielding emails asking for missing files instead of actually doing high-value legal work. Ultimately, all your downstream stages inherit weak, messy data. It's like a crooked first domino that just ruins the alignment of the whole line.
So I want you to really pause and consider this question. If a matter starts badly, what actually happens to the rest of the workflow? Well, the answer, as we've just seen, is that downstream rework and operational chaos are directly inherited right from that starting line. You simply cannot build a highly efficient, tech-enabled legal practice on top of a disorganized, totally manual intake process. The rest of the workflow just inherits that initial mess.
All right, Section 4, redesigning the starting line. Let's talk about fixing it.
Now that we've diagnosed the friction, why is matter intake the absolute best first bottleneck to tackle? Well, first off, it happens early in the flow. That means any improvement you make cascades downward. It directly affects routing, setup, ownership, timing, the whole shebang. By fixing it, you drastically reduce downstream rework. But from a purely business perspective, it is highly operational and very easy to measure. It gives the firm's leadership a visible, tangible first win without making crazy, exaggerated claims or pretending you're going to automate the entire firm overnight. It's practical. It's commercially grounded.
And here is the exact transformation we're aiming for. When you rely on manual intake, you're stuck with inconsistent capture and all that downstream friction we talked about. But structured intake completely changes the game. Information is captured exactly once. Required fields are structured right at the start, meaning if something's missing, it gets flagged immediately, not 3 days later. The correct team or reviewers notified automatically. You're opening the matter with infinitely cleaner data, which means approvals and the actual legal work can kick off from a vastly better base.
And finally, Section 5, orchestration with Omnisenti. So how do we actually build this into a practical strategy? To get this right, we have to talk about orchestration. Orchestration is the structured movement and control of information between your systems. It ensures data is captured once and intelligently routed to the right reviewer. And I want to reassure any ops leaders listening to this right now. This is not about replacing your firm's core tech. You don't have to rip out your existing software, and it is certainly not about removing human review. It is simply about connecting the systems you already have to guarantee a cleaner downstream flow.
This is exactly where a partnership with Omnisenti becomes incredibly valuable. Omnisenti operates as your diagnostic and implementation partner. They don't just show up and give you a generic SaaS product demo. Instead, they take a completely workflow-first approach. They help you look under the hood to identify if intake actually is the right first bottleneck to fix for your specific firm. Then they actively redesign that workflow with you. They make sure the correct review points are in place so information is captured once and carried cleanly downstream, giving you vastly better control.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with this core takeaway. For many law firms, the best first AI win is not the flashiest task. It is fixing how the matter starts. Innovation in legal ops isn't always about buying the most futuristic tool out there. It's about optimizing the workflow that improves everything that comes after it. By fixing your starting line, you empower your entire firm to operate with so much more clarity and a lot less friction. Which leaves us with one final, pretty critical question for you and your operations team to think about. Is your firm's matter intake a structured start, or is it a manual relay race? Take a hard, honest look at how your new matters begin tomorrow morning. Because if you're seeing drop battens, it might just be time to rethink your starting line. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it's given you a fresh, practical perspective on legal workflow optimization.